The Mets brought out the Magic and the Bats out in L.A., and they tied this series up 1-1 with the Dodgers. It's game on, baby, and it's coming back to Citi Field. So let's talk NLCS with your favorite Mets fanalist. You guys know him as Wardy on YouTube. Tyler Ward is back into the building, ladies and gentlemen. Well, not back in studio, but back into the Zoom room, as I like to call it. What's up, my guy?
How you doing, Brandon? Really excited to get into this one. Last time we spoke, vibes were doing nice in Mets land, and now they're even doing nicer after taking that game 2 in L.A. Let's get into this one.
All right, because I got to give some flowers to Manaea. He earned himself some Twitter followers last night. He was on fire up until the 5th when he kind of cooled down, but he did go make Shohei Ohtani go 0 for 3. So talk about the outing, man. Was this one of his best outings of the postseason?
Yeah, I definitely think for me, this falls just behind his last outing, which was against the Philadelphia Phillies, where he went 7 strong innings. This is right behind that, in my opinion. If he gave the Mets 6 innings, I think it's probably toe-and-toe, because as dominant as he was at home for the Mets and one of their key wins in the NLCS, I would argue that what Manaea just did in L.A. was pretty much just at the top of the list of as good. Why exactly, you might ask? Well, as you alluded to, Brandon, it's an attack on Shohei Ohtani. We know that Manaea is not the same Manaea that is 7+ ERA in his career against the Dodgers leading up to this start. That arm slot's changed. He's looking more Chris Sale-esque than ever right now, and he had Shohei so fooled. We're looking at 3 at-bats, 10 pitches total, back-to-back strikeouts, and then an infield pop-out on Shohei. He had no clue where the sweeper was going. He had no clue where the sinker was going. That lefty-lefty action was absolutely brilliant, and Manaea showed once again why he is the Mets ace here in the 2024 season.
Yeah, and I talked about that 5th inning when he kind of gave up the home run. Then they were able to get another run in the 6th. But the Mets bullpen came in, closed it out. Give them their flowers, man. What'd you think about the Mets bullpen closing this thing out?
Yeah, from a fan perspective, everyone was kind of shaking in their boots initially because you had a bases-loaded jam initially for Phil Maton to adopt, and obviously a couple runs scored out of that. However, Maton held his own by keeping the Mets in the ball game, in which they were still up by 3. And then from the transition from Maton to Stanek, which I absolutely loved, you had a soft-tossing right hand versus a flamethrowing right hand in Stanek, who got the job done for multiple outs. And then when Stanek allowed 2 on with 2 out or so, we decided to go for Edwin Diaz for the 4-out save. And initially, we're like, okay, what are we going to get from Edwin this time around? He's pitched a lot lately. He's been Jekyll and Hyde in what you're getting. He gets a huge final out there in the 8th. And then the 9th, you have 2 on, no out. And you're like thinking, oh, my goodness gracious. I understand the Mets are up by 4, but surely things are going to be far from easy to end this ballgame. Of course, you're going to be breaking a sweat as a Mets fan to secure the 4-out save. But what does Edwin Diaz do? He shuts down the door, striking out Mookie, striking out Tio, and striking out Freddie back-to-back to end the ball game. That's what we call a bulldog. That's what we call a $100 million man. That's what we call this Mets bullpen stepping up big time when they need to most.
The trumpets came alive out in Hollywood yesterday. Another thing that came alive was the bats, man. The offense went from getting shut out game 1 to 7 runs in game 2, and it all started with our guy Francisco Lindor, man. What happened? Like, where did all this come from? Where did that offense explosion come from?
The offense explosion came from a Mets team that was upset after dropping game 1 9-0 in L.A. in an embarrassing fashion. The Mets have never been embarrassed in playoffs this year, the way that the Dodgers absolutely took care of business there in game 1. So they came out with a vengeance, guns a-blazing, in a bullpen game against the Dodgers early. They knew they needed to attack early and often. And Francisco Lindor with a fantastic grind of leadoff at-bat. I called it, and we had even people in my chat yesterday calling it, saying, we're feeling a leadoff a home run for Mr. Lindor. And once he got that middle pitch, sayonara, see you later, it's out of here, that was the leadoff bomb. And then all the heroics came in that 2nd inning, Brandon, because as good as Lindor was, Mark Vientos is even better. But Dave Roberts didn't think so originally, and that was the problem. After Tyrone Taylor kickstarts the inning there in the 2nd with an RBI double to give the Mets a 2-0 lead, they ultimately find themselves in a bases-loaded jam for the Dodgers and the Mets, and that is all because they decided to do the intentional walk to Mr. Smile and Francisco Lindor. I understood the thought process to a degree, but at the same time, even with the poor at-bats Mark Vientos had in game 1, the 9-0 loss, this is the same Mark Vientos who had 2 home runs, 3 extra base hits there in game 2 in that loss, the NLDS and the Phillies. He has been tremendous as a 24-year-old phenom blossoming before our very eyes, and he gets all that one. He literally said it. He did the Michael Jordan meme himself post-game by saying, I'm gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest, I took it personally when they walked Lindor to face me specifically. First grand salami there of his career in postseason play. Mets have themselves a 6-0 lead. They win ultimately with 7 runs total. Yeah, the vibes are high. Mets win on the offensive end, and hopefully that transitions into game 3 this Wednesday back at Citi Field.
Well, games 3, 4, and 5 are at Citi Field, I believe. So come on, quick preview. We're obviously going to talk to you before game 3, but quick thoughts going into game 3.
Yeah, going into game 3, my initial thoughts are I'm excited to see what Luis Severino can do. Severino's first 2 starts in this year's postseason have been on the road. He's handled himself fine. Gave up 2 or 3 earned runs in each of those respective starts over 6 innings pitched either way. Now we have him here for game 3, matching up against Walker Buehler, who didn't do all that well in his first outing against the San Diego Padres in this year's postseason play. Then from there, game 2, it's likely going to be Yoshinobu Yamamoto matching up against Jose Quintana. And then game 5 there, game 4, and then game 5 to wrap up the homestand there at Citi Field potentially for the Mets, where they're going to try and end this in 5, knocking on wood, obviously, as a Mets fan right now. You're going to potentially have then Jack Flaherty for the Dodgers, and for the Mets, do they go back to potentially David Pearson in a starting role, given how much Kodai Senga labored there in game 1? We'll find out, but either way, you got 3 more games at Citi Field before potentially going back to LA if you have to. Things are definitely riding high in Mets land right now.
All right, tell the people they can find you.
All right, guys, you guys can check out my work there at WardyNYM on YouTube, on X, where I cover the Mets every single day. Brandon, always a pleasure. I'm very excited to get into our further segments here throughout postseason play. And hopefully next time we talk, it's not only a preview, but eventually the Mets advancing to the dance. Hope to see you then, my man.
Let's keep this thing rolling because it's magical. Thanks, man. Thanks for hopping on with us, bro.
Appreciate you, Brandon.